Hello, and welcome to the Permission to Breathe podcast, a transformative space dedicated to providing a sanctuary where you can inhale deeply and exhale freely, embracing your grief journey unapologetically. I am your host, Dr. Tammy Isaac, here with you every Monday to offer comfort, guidance, and hope. Together we'll navigate this path, finding moments to pause, reflect, and breathe. Let's begin this journey side by side. Are you grieving and feel like you're struggling alone? You don't have to walk this path by yourself. Book a virtual session with Dr. Tammy Isaac at Breathe Grief Counseling Center. Visit us online at www.breathegriefcounselingcenter.com. Dr. Isaac will help you put your emotions into words. She'll help you reduce the feeling of isolation. She'll help you understand that everyone grieves differently, and also help you prevent unhealthy coping mechanisms. Take control of your life with world-class counseling sessions today with Dr. Tammy Isaac. Grief is a deeply personal experience that affects us all in many different ways, and often it leaves people feeling very overwhelmed and isolated. So our aim today is to understand why being mindful and supportive is so crucial, and to offer practical ways we can provide comfort and connection to those in mourning. So whether you're a friend, a family member, or a part of a community, your support can play a pivotal role in someone's healing journey. So today we'll discuss the importance of acknowledging the uniqueness of each person's grief, the significance of emotional validation, and how our collective support can strengthen bonds within our communities. We'll also explore offering support honors the memories of those who have passed and also helps both the bereaved and the community move forward. So let's take a deep breath. And let's embark on this journey of understanding and compassion together. Hello, and welcome back to the Permission to Breathe podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tammy Isaac, and today's episode is going to be all about how we can be more mindful and supportive of people who are grieving. And this is something that we will all have to encounter in our life, whether it is with somebody that we know and love, or if it's just somebody that we encounter within our communities. So grief is one of the most challenging emotions that we will have to navigate in life. And for many, it's a journey filled with confusion, sadness, and isolation. And our ability to be present for someone in this time can be a powerful force for their healing. So let's explore ways that we can validate emotions and offer meaningful connections and foster an environment of compassion within our relationships and the communities that we're involved in. So as we move forward, let's talk about first the complexity of grief. So grief is unique, right? Grief doesn't look the same for any two people. Some may cry openly while others may stay silent or even seem detached and removed from what's happening. Some people will process grief over time while others may feel the weight long after the loss has happened. And so this is why I tell people often that you can grieve the rest of your life. Now, how you grieve is the difference, right? So are you going to grieve in a healthy way, or do you grieve in an unhealthy way, which will determine what type of grief you're experiencing, because you can have a prolonged grief or a very complicated grief if you're not navigating through that journey in a healthy way and in a healthy space. So while some people can tend to navigate through their journey a little faster than others, there are some people who may take a little bit longer. And it doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. It just means that this person needs a little bit more time. And so we cannot just expect people to go a year or 6 months and be done with it. But it's just based on how much time, how much space that they need. It's also based on, how much support do they have and how good of support do they have around them to help them process through. It's kind of like, healing from an illness or healing from a surgery. Having good recovery is important to your healing and how you can process through that. Will it take 6 weeks, like the doctor said, or some people can progress through with 4 weeks because they're in a more healthy environment. And so it's important to recognize that grief looks different for other people, and the way that they process it will also look different. So a mindful approach that we need to have is that if I'm going to be a mindful supporter, I have to recognize that each person's grief process is different and avoid making assumptions or offering generic advice like it's going to be okay or you'll move on, or it'll get better. These are some things that we just cannot say. In my book, Let the Church Grieve, there's a list of the 10 best things and the 10 worst things to say. You should check that out. But we have to be careful not to be saying the same things to the same people because they don't receive it the same way, because the loss is very different and the way that they're processing it is very different. So you can't just say it'll be okay, because really, how do you know it's going to be okay? Like, have you jumped in the future and known what's going to happen? Have you experienced this type of loss and had this type of relationship and emotional connection like I do to this particular person? So it's hard for you to really know and understand or comprehend or foresee how this is going to play out for that person. But you can be mindful and supportive by being present and understanding that their grief is very unique. And then we need to be active listeners, right? Being mindful means that I'm listening without trying to fix or change how the grieving person feels. So many times we want to make things better. And a lot of times this is because we love people, right? And we see that they're hurting. We see that they're going through difficult times and challenging moments. The first thing that our heart will say is, how can I make this better for the person? Because you love them so much. And sometimes loving them so much really hurts the relationship, because I or you are not allowing them to go through the process that they need to in order to heal, because they're going to process differently from our expectations. And there's nothing that we can really do but be an active listener and be present and not trying to change it. One of the things we learn in clinical pastoral education is like, can you just sit in the pit with people? Can you just sit in the dark without trying to make it better? Because a lot of times people just want to be seen and they just want to be heard. Also, it's about being fully present and accepting their experience as it is without judgment. It is being fully present and accepting their experience, not yours, their experience as it is without judgment. A lot of times when people go through grief and have a death, if somebody's mom died, you'd be like, yeah, my mom died. I know how I felt. Well, this experience is not about you. As a helpful or mindful supporter, you have to be present enough to know that this is their experience, this is their journey, this is what they're going through, this is what they're experiencing, without your judgment or expectations being put on them. We just want to listen and consume the experience that they're having so that we can know how to better support them in the midst of what they're going through. And we want to avoid phrases like, at least they're in a better place, or you need to be strong. These can unintentionally minimize somebody's pain. Instead, we should be saying things like, I'm here for you, or I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm here. The whole idea is to let them know that you're present. It is not to identify with what they're going through, because there's no way that you really can. And, some of the things is like, how can you say that they're in a better place? And the thing is like, how, how do you not know that the better place for them is not here with me? Right? How do you know that? And so we never want to find ourselves in a predicament where we are minimizing somebody's pain just because we can't emotionally identify with them at that particular point. But at least we can be present and identify that this is painful and this is very hard for them. And as we do that, we begin to validate their emotions. So we got to start to acknowledge them, right? So grief can stir up all kinds of emotions. Again, I said in the beginning, sadness, anger, guilt, confusion, and sometimes even relief, believe it or not. But it's important to remind the grieving person that these emotions that they are feeling are all valid and all part of the process. And so we'll feel all kinds of things, and it's not that any of them are bad. It's just the emotions that are coming up and rising because of the emotional connection that I've had with this person, the love that I've opened myself up to this person, place, or thing. And so these emotions arise, and I believe that emotions are here to help us heal. We'll do a podcast on that in a couple of weeks, but emotions were created by God, and they are in us for a reason, and they arise for a reason, and we need to allow them to flow and explore through our journey, giving them voice to testify, but not rule over our lives, and acknowledge that this is happening here to me. This is the way that I feel. This is what's happening on the inside, instead of denying that. And a lot of times people deny exactly how they feel because the person that's with them, that's supposed to be supporting them, has not also given them to permission to feel the way that they feel, right? If you go back to the day one, episode 1 of the podcast, I talked about why permission. You'll get a little more insight on why we need to give ourselves permission, but also people around us need to give us permission. And so as we are being present with people, we are providing active listening and providing emotional validation. One of the important things to know that it's okay to sit in silence. Sometimes silence is scary for some folks, and they feel like they always have to be talking. They can't sit quiet. Because their thoughts, I guess, are running through their head, and they're always feeling like that there needs to be movement. But the truth is, silence is a good thing, especially at these times when you have people that you love that are grieving. Sometimes the best way to validate someone's emotions is by simply sitting in silence with them, knowing that you can sit in the pit, you can sit in the darkness, and you can sit in the pain with me. This quiet space, this quiet presence can often speak louder than words. And it offers comfort in the midst of pain, that though I'm going through a dark season in my life, I don't have to sit in it alone, but I have people who will come and join me in the process and in the journey to make sure that I can come through and recover and not be alone and not have to strain myself to muster up out of this dark place. But they will sit with me, and sitting with me is like throwing me a rope. It's like lighting a lamp to see my way through. It's you sitting with me is like thirst for my thirsty soul, right? It is about you being present. It is about knowing that people love me and want to see me come through my painful place and want to help me, and they are not afraid to sit with me in the midst of that journey. Those who are grieving need your presence. Grief can create a deep sense of isolation, and many people feel like they're alone in their pain, or that others just don't understand what they're going through, which then this causes them to withdraw from social interactions or even ask for help as they're struggling. Grieving individuals often worry that by expressing their grief, they will be a burden on their friends, on their families, and which leads them to really bottle up and keep their emotions to themselves, which is not healthy. And I find it quite funny that The one who's going through so much pain has time to really think about what other people feel about their experience and how they're grieving. And goes back to the thought of they need permission to feel the way that they do. They need not only their own permission, but they need your permission to be able to experience what they are experiencing through in their grief, and however that looks like. I was listening to a podcast where a woman was sharing her grief experience, and she was saying that she lost a loved one, I think maybe 2 or 3 months. And she had overheard some friends saying, I don't want to invite such and such because all she's going to do is cry. Well, the question is, like, she just lost a loved one. What else do you expect her to be doing at this point, right? People will isolate themselves and hold in and bottle up their emotions, which is very much unhealthy, because they are more concerned of being a burden on you when they're the ones that's really carrying the burden of grief in their hearts. So one of the simple gestures of support that we can provide is really building connection. One of the most meaningful ways to show support is by offering time, right? Whether it's making a meal, running an errand, or just being physically present, all these gestures can really alleviate practical burdens that grief often brings. And the thing is, most people are so overwhelmed and burdened by grief that it is exhausting even to think about getting up out of bed. It's exhausting to think about getting in the shower. It's exhausting thinking about maybe trying to cook breakfast or clean the house. So you just offering practical resources or practical support is more beneficial than you could ever think. I recall, when my mom died, of course, a lot of people were supportive, but the most thing I think I hold close or remember is those who did cook me meals and brought them to the house, because, I live alone at this point. And my cousin Shay, who came over and helped me clean. That is the most important. I don't want to say the most important, but that is the most relevant thing that I really remember, is her coming over every morning and she helped me clean. She drove me places for errands. She just sat with me as I was going through the process of emotions and planning, things like that. That was more meaningful to me than I can think of anything else that anybody had done. Although I will say I appreciate everybody's support and people being there for me, because it was very much needed. But the first thing that pops in my head is usually how my cousin came over and helped me clean. And so just those simple gestures are really important, and you don't know how much people really value that. The other thing is, like, while we are in these spaces with them and sitting with them, I talked a little bit about active listening earlier, but I want to make sure that you understand that active listening is listening without an agenda, right? So grieving people or individuals may want to share stories or memories about their loved one that they've lost, or the person, place, or thing, or they may not want to talk at all. Okay. But it's important for us, as we're being supportive, that we be open to either. And that's the key, because the goal is to be present, not to direct the conversation. It is to allow them the leeway and the passageway that you've presented for them to go down or not go down. Whether they want to talk about the loss, whether they want to talk about the pain, or they want to talk about something else, whatever they want to talk about, or if they don't want to talk at all, is good, right? But just be there without an agenda, allowing them to direct the course of the conversation or not. Maybe you guys could just sit in silence. Maybe you can just come over and watch a movie with them. Whatever it is, you let them navigate how that moment will be. And if they want to share something, they will, because you have created a safe space. where you have allowed them to be in control of how and what that looks like versus you coming in as the director of what's going to happen during this present moment. So understand that your presence matters. It matters more than any other thing in that space. So sometimes being physically present without words can be the most impactful form of support. Sitting together, offering a hug, simply holding your hand can be deeply comforting without words. Some people are uncomfortable, like I said before, that there are no words, but there's a lot that can be communicated without actually speaking, right? Um, so just remember that you showing up, and I know time has been like this hot commodity that people are always trying to preserve it and do something great with it that's going to earn them some money or whatever in the business world. But also know that time is very valuable when it comes to relationships and supporting people through situations, circumstances that can be very painful, that brings them grief. That just you being there is worth so much more than anything else you could do for them on that journey. People who sat with me, people who showed up for me, are the ones that I remember the most versus in any other support I could have gotten. But just showing up and showing me that you really care about what I was experiencing is really important to those of us who grieve. And then if you are in their presence and you notice that the grief seems overwhelming or leads to destructive behaviors, then you can gently suggest professional help, like a grief counselor or something like that. Those things that can be a lifeline for them. And that's important while you're being present, you're having active listening with no agenda so that you can be present to really see and identify what they are experiencing and understand that if this is going down a unhealthy path, that you can recommend and suggest in a kind, compassionate way that maybe they want to see somebody. And it's important to offer this suggestion with care and empathy without implying like they should be doing, right? You want to make sure that your words are folded neatly together in a very empathetic and compassionate way, and that you're not forcing them into something that they don't want to do, but you're only making a suggestion or a recommendation because of your love and support for them. Today's episode is sponsored by Let the Church Grieve by Dr. Tammy Isaac, a compelling book that explores the often overlooked subject of grief within spiritual communities. Dr. Isaac combines personal antidotes with theological insights, providing a compassionate framework for understanding and addressing grief collectively. This book emphasizes the need for spiritual leaders to create safe spaces for mourning and guides congregations through the grieving process with faith and empathy. It's a must read for anyone looking to support those experiencing grief within their spiritual communities. Grab your copy of Let the Church Grieve at www.drtammyisaac.com today and begin the journey towards healing and growth. Now back to our show. Let's talk about now community support. So when a whole community rallies around a grieving person, it creates a powerful sense of safety and understanding. So whether it's family, friends, neighbors, or colleagues, collective support reminds the grieving person that they are not alone, right? Support from a community goes beyond sympathy cards and flowers. So, because that's the easy thing to do, but it's about offering practical help. Like I mentioned earlier, showing up, cleaning, providing meals, maybe doing some childcare, helping them organize memorial funerals or days after that, or organizing life after that. Even the smallest of gestures, leaving a supportive message or checking in regularly really makes a huge difference. Now, outside of me remembering like my cousin who showed up to help me clean and help me run errands, drive me around to make errands. The other thing that I remember is one particular lady who texted me every day, something encouraging, a scripture, a phrase, a quote. I'm thinking about you and I'm praying. This one lady did it for a long period of time. And I I appreciate that so much. And I don't know if I've actually ever told her that to her face, but and the thing about it was I never responded. I never called her back. She would text, she even left voicemails. I would never respond to any of it, but I appreciated it so much. And I also appreciated her enough that she understood that whether I responded or not, that I needed those encouraging words and messages, that she kept doing it without getting a response from me. Sometimes we can be so consumed with what we're doing to support somebody else that we need to be recognized and acknowledged for it, not realizing and understanding that, listen, just picking up the phone is hard. I had people in my life when my mom died was like, why didn't you call me? Or you need to call such and such. And I'm like, hold on. I can't even get up out of bed and you want me to call you. I'm still grappling with the fact that she's not here. It's been a day or two, but you want to feel so special that I need to call you and tell you personally, but you already know she did. Like, I don't even understand that. So I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole, but that, I don't understand that. I think that we, as a supportive community, you got to put these people's emotions and their feelings first, and acknowledge that what they're going through is a very difficult time and season, and that it can be very hard to reciprocate or even follow through or respond to messages or things like that, because there's a lot happening in our bodies. There's a lot of emotions that's happening, but our body is also grieving. Our body is trying to find ways to reconcile the pain that is happening. Our brain is trying to put pieces of the puzzle together, like that person is here but no longer here. There's a lot happening, so much more than whether I pick up a phone or respond to a message that you send. But listen, the lady who continued to contact me was a blessing to me, and it made a huge difference. I appreciate what she did for me. And also, let's talk about strengthening those bonds and those relationships with those in our community. So supporting someone through grief strengthens not just your relationship with that individual, but the bonds within the wider community. What it does is it shows others that empathy and compassion are central values, and that it's okay to lean on one another in times of need. And so, when we come together and rally around others, it becomes a ripple effect. And so once you, as a griever, when you start to experience this community support, you realize how important it is. You realize the benefit of it. You realize that it's okay to have a community that you can weep with, and that now you in turn begin to do the same for others who are also grieving. So that's why it's so important that we are educated and informed about grief and ways of support and helping people recover through this, so that we can now have a ripple effect of having that experience and giving that experience to somebody else. Creating a safe space for our emotions is also very important as we support people in a community. So when we think about the compassionate community, it will allow everyone to express their feelings, whether they are grieving directly or indirectly affected by the loss. This will is this type of openness that creates a culture of shared healing and resilience. So when I think about this, I think about the scripture in Romans that says to rejoice with them that rejoice and weep with them that weep. So everyone is allowed to come together and express what they're feeling in that moment, whether they're grieving a direct loss or indirectly. So when I explain this, I usually say, say for instance, if there's somebody that I love personally, like my aunt, not my aunt, but my best friend's aunt died a few years ago, and she was grieving her and her other aunts, her family. And I went to share in time and space with her and her family. And what was painful for me was knowing that my best friend, whom I love, was weeping, was mourning. And so I was able to sit in mourning with her, not because I had a relationship like she did with her aunt, but this was indirectly because I love her, my best friend, so much. To see her in pain was heartstaking. And so I was able to weep with her as much as I find times to rejoice with her as well. And so when you're able to do that in community, it makes it a little more bearable, and you feel free to be able to express yourself, and it brings a shared healing for everyone. And there is a resilience that is created in the midst of these safe spaces for emotions. I don't have to be concerned about, is it okay if I cry? Is it okay if I share my anger about what I'm feeling? I don't have to be afraid of how I feel or feel like somebody's going to judge me, because we're all in this together, and we're all grieving in some way, and we're all supporting one another through this process. And, the benefit of grieving, like I said, is this. Offering support to someone who is grieving is not only about comforting the person in their time of need, but it is also a profound way to honor the memory of the one who has actually passed. So when we extend empathy and care to the bereaved, we are, in a sense, acknowledging the significance of the loss and the importance of the person who is no longer with us. Each person leaves an incredible mark on the world by showing up with compassion and supportiveness. We are affirming that the person who passed away absolutely mattered. Their life had meaning, and their absence is deeply felt. This acknowledgement can be incredibly comforting to the grieving person. And in the midst of their sorrow, they may worry that the person that they love will be forgotten, but you being there helps support them that their loss is not unnoticed by others, and that you're there to help them through that process of what they're experiencing, because they matter, but also the one that they lost matters. And so by offering our support, we demonstrate that we see and that we understand the depth of their pain, and that the person who passed is also worth or worthy of being remembered. Every individual touches the lives of others in so many different, unique ways. And whether it has been through kindness, work, their personality, or the love that they shared, the impact that they made doesn't end when they die. We still experience those. We still remember those. We still express those. And so when we support someone who is grieving, we reflect that the legacy of the deceased one still continues in the one that loves them. We honor the impact of the person by being present for those for those they loved. And our care for the bereaved is, in a way, a type of extension of the care we might have shown to the person who actually passed. So through our empathy, we end up helping the grieving person to keep the deceased person's memory alive in the most personal way that can be remembered. So when we show empathy and care to someone who is grieving, it is more than just words, but it's also about actions. It could mean listening to stories about the person who passed away, helping to preserve the memories, or participating in some type of remembrance, like candle lighting, planting a tree, or um, planning a memorial service. These gestures, small as they may be, not only support the grieving person, but also helps to pay tribute to the deceased. It shows that their life is still worthy of celebration, reflection, and even honor, even though they're no longer physically here. Um, when my mom died, those that helped me plan, those that helped me get things in order, those that helped me make decisions, these were ways that people were honoring my mom by supporting me in the process. And I remember them to this day, and I thank them and appreciate them for all that they have actually done for me in that process. So when we are supporting someone through grief, it also creates this type of shared legacy. So we become part of the story, part of the remembrance, helping the grieving person carry the weight of their sorrow. And in doing so, we ensure that the person who passed will live on, not just in the memories of their closest family, but in the hearts of those who surround them. I love that. Every compassionate act we offer contributes to the ongoing legacy of the one who has passed away, reinforcing the idea that even in death, their impact still remains. So, in essence, offering support to someone who is grieving allows us to become part of a larger narrative. It's a way of saying this person mattered, their life was important, and we will carry their memory forward. That's why I don't like the phrase saying, have you moved on from, your grief, moved on from the death? No, we move forward with them. We move forward with the memory of their life. We move forward with the memory of all of those who shared in the support of helping us to plan funerals, plan memorials, candle lighting, to get programs together, to make decisions, to clean houses, to bring food. This is all a part of moving forward with these memories and these new mosaics that we are creating as we continue to move forward in our grief. It turns our grief into an act of community where both the grieving person and those supporting them then find meaning and support and comfort in remembering a life that is well lived, right? So being mindful and supportive of those who are grieving involves validating their emotions, offering a connection to encounter or to counter isolation, and fostering a compassionate community. So remember that every act of care, no matter how small, it definitely will make a difference. And remembering that grief doesn't follow a timeline, and it's important to remember that your support may be needed long after the funeral or initial period of loss. So we have to continue to check in and be present and offer help as the person continues their journey, because it just begins basically. You hear a lot of people say it really begins after the funeral, when people start getting back to their life and everyday life and start going on to their own habitations and doing things. And then, like, who's left there with those that are grieving to support them? They're going to need you in the long run. And so it's important to remember that our presence, understanding, and care can significantly impact someone's ability to process grief and to be able to move forward into their healing. And often it's not about what we say, but how we show up for the grieving individual. How do we show up? What is our presence when we do show up? Have we created a safe space? Are we actively listening without judgment or coming with an agenda for a type of conversation? If you found that this podcast was helpful for you today, I do ask that you would please share it with others who might benefit, and let's create a ripple of support for those who are grieving, one act of compassion at a time. So thank you, and I pray that as we go through life, remember to take moments to breathe deeply, offering ourselves the same compassion and care as we extend to others. Be blessed, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Permission to Breathe podcast. I hope today created space for you to breathe and find peace on your journey. I invite you to join me again next Monday for another episode as we continue to navigate this path together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share the podcast. Until next time, take care and keep breathing unapologetically.